Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Contracts Unfolded. In the last video, we talked about intellectual property rights clause. And in this video, we will talk about the indemnity clause. So let me first explain what an indemnity is. So an indemnity is basically a contractual promise to bear the loss. It basically means that one party has agreed that in case a specific type of damage or a specific type of claim will occur, then it will bear the responsibility for the losses in place of the other party who has actually suffered those losses. And this usually happens whenever a third party is involved. So an indemnity clause is never about who is right or who is wrong. It is always about who will bear the losses in case something goes wrong. And that is precisely the reason why indemnity clause gets heavily negotiated into the agreements. So without wasting any time, now let's jump into the important components of a indemnity clause. So the first component is who is indemnifying whom. As a first step, you should always check who is protecting whom. Most of the indemnity clauses are one-sided and they say vendor shall indemnify the client. And in most of the cases, many startups and many young service provider businesses accept such kind of clauses without giving it a much thought. But there is a problem. And the problem is sometimes the vendor itself can get a claim. And in those situations, there shall be no one to bear the losses for the vendor. So let me give you an example for this. Let's say a client provides some content, some design, and some data to the service provider to deliver a project. And the service provider uses those content into the deliverables. Now later a third party comes and says, oh, those designs belongs to me. And since you have created this project, please pay me the damages that I have suffered. Now the thing is, the vendor is not the owner of the data that was provided to it. It was the client. And therefore, in such type of situations, the client shall indemnify the vendor. And therefore, instead of accepting one-sided indemnity clauses blindly, you should always think who has the real control for such type of events. If there are chances where both parties can get a claim because of each other, then always push back for a mutual indemnity clause. The second component is what triggers indemnity. And in this, you basically have to check when does the indemnity clauses apply. Now, some reasonable triggers are third-party claims, IP infringements, data protection violations, or breach of confidentiality. However, some indemnity clauses also say something like this: anything arising out of this agreement or anything related to the services shall be a part of the indemnity. The problem with such kind of clauses is that these are very wide clauses and they can basically push anything into the ambit of the indemnity. Even a minor delayed delivery or even a minor breach can be considered as an indemnity and can trigger indemnity if such wide clauses are accepted. And the solution to this problem is very simple. Indemnity should always apply to specific events and not to any and all kind of events. And second, if possible, try to limit indemnity only to third party claims, because for other kind of claims or other kind of losses, you always have different kinds of remedies available for the breach of a contract, such as specific performance, such as injunction. The third component is what losses are covered. And here you basically have to check how big the risk really is, because most indemnity clauses say any and all losses, damages, expenses, and claims. And this looks very normal, but this could be very dangerous because there is no limit prescribed or defined to the losses that one party shall bear for the other party. And it can include anything, be it lawyer fees, settlement, penalties, or even indirect damages or indirect losses. Let's say the actual claim amount is very small, but the lawyer fees keeps on increasing and increasing and increasing, and because of this, ultimately the indemnity amount gets much bigger, and you don't want to fall into such situations. And to prevent this, it is important that you keep a cap or you keep a limit to the indemnity claim amount. And the solution to this is very simple. Clearly define what kind of losses shall be covered under the indemnity. Ideally, it should be direct losses and foreseeable losses. Never accept any indirect or consequential losses until there is a very strong reason to accept it. Because if you accept such kind of losses blindly, even a single indemnity event can push you into the bankruptcy, and you don't want to fall into that. So these are the three most important components of a indemnity clause. Once you understand who is indemnifying whom, when does the indemnity applies, and what kind of losses are covered, you have already reduced most of the risks. Now these components are just the tip of an iceberg, because indemnity clause is much wider to cover and there are a lot of aspects attached to it, but we will cover those aspects in some future or later video. So if you find this video helpful, consider subscribing this channel and sharing this video to other folks who are into contracts. Thank you so much for your time.